Alrighty, we're gonna dig straight into this nutrition stuff, and I guess the number one thing I get asked a lot, or the number one question is, what is flexible dieting? What the hell is flexible dieting? Um, Years ago we would hashtag IIFYM if it fits your macros, and I would have friends who would do hashtagging IIFYM on my page, and they had no idea what the hell it even was. They would just do it because I would do it, and they had no idea. And now it's mainstream. I didn't make it up. I didn't invent it or anything. I just stumbled across it and incorporated it, and it worked really well. But anyway, what is flexible dieting? Flexible dieting is essentially considering nutritional principles that make sense, that are scientifically backed, and that allow us to eat in a way that is comfortable within our within our lifestyle limitations, within our preferences, and helps us to comfortably get towards our goal in a way that we most enjoy. Now that's a very broad answer, but what I mean by that is there's something that we call the nutritional pyramid. And basically what that means is the foundation of nutrition is calories. So your calorie intake will determine whether you gain weight or lose weight. I say this all the time. You've probably heard me say it before. So calorie intake will determine whether you gain weight or lose weight. So if you are highly active and you're not eating enough calories, you will lose weight. If you're highly active but you're eating a ton of calories, you'll probably gain weight. If you're semi-active and you're eating a ton of calories, you'll definitely gain weight. So basically, it comes down to energy balance. If you're burning 2,000 calories per day and you're eating 1,500 calories per day, you will lose weight. If you're if you're burning 2,000 calories per day, and you're eating 3,000 calories per day, you will gain weight. And that's the simple energy equation. Now, there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to that, because sometimes people will say, hey, I only eat 1,200 calories, but I'm not losing any weight. And are you really eating 1,200 calories? That's the question that I would ask that person. And 99.9% of the time, they are not eating 1,200 calories. Maybe they are eating 1,200 calories on the days that they think about eating 1,200 calories, but outside of that, they're really not. So I say this a lot as well. Regardless of what you try to do, your body's going to fight it, especially if it's an uncomfortable thing. Your body's going to fight it. So if you try to starve and you're not losing weight, you're getting the calories from somewhere. Your body is getting the calories from somewhere. More often than not, it's not a matter of metabolic damage or anything like that. It's just a matter of you are starving yourself when the days that you're thinking about it, and the days that you're not thinking about it, your body's taking in all the calories. Think about times that you have coffee or like Starbucks or soft drinks or lollies or your cheat meals, or you just go out for dinner and end up eating a ton. Things like that, social events and situations like that occur more often if you're under eating, because your body will always get the calories from somewhere. And if your body doesn't get the calories from somewhere, you will lose weight. So it's that simple. But calories will always be the determining factor of whether you gain weight or lose weight. But there's so many other considerations to think about as to why people aren't losing the weight that they think they should be when they feel like they're doing everything right. But anyways, calories is number one. Number two are macronutrients. So you know what, I'm going to make this video as brief as possible, but also very informative still. So macros are number two. Your macros are your protein, your carbs, and your fat. Protein is amino acids basically, and that's the building blocks of muscle. So they're going to help you to build muscle. You need to have enough protein to build and maintain muscle, or enough to maintain muscle, but you need to have a certain amount to build muscle. You need to have a certain amount of carbohydrate for energy performance. You need to have a certain amount of fat for hormone balance and general life and nutrient transport and things like that. So they're all important. You don't really need to cancel out any of them. They all serve a role and have a purpose. The thing is though, calories are always number one. So the way that your macros are distributed doesn't matter as much as calories matter when it comes to weight loss or weight gain. But what we care about is building as much muscle as we can, or rather maintaining as much muscle as we can and getting leaner in the process. So protein becomes an important factor because that's the one that's going to help you to maintain or build muscle. So that's one that we have to really care about. If you asked me 6 months or maybe a year ago, I'd probably tell you that you need to have a certain percentage of of fat, dietary fat intake, and the rest goes to carbs. And that's still a general practice that I do follow. However, more recent research shows that what matters most is, of course, the calories and the protein amount. And then your carbs and your fats, they can fluctuate, they can move around. And as long as you're within your calorie goal and you've hit your protein number, you're still pretty good and you're still going to maintain and build muscle just as you would like to. And you're still going to stay within that weight range because of the calorie target that you're hitting. So if you were to go over your carbs, you can go under your fat to compensate, or if you go over your fat, you can go under your carbs, and that's perfectly fine. So that's something that we can definitely, it's nice to know about and consider, especially on days where you find that you've hit your fat target sooner than you'd like to. That's a consideration that you can take, and still be within your targets. But nevertheless, protein, carbs, and fats are the nutrients that your body requires for certain roles. And flexible dieting takes calories as your number one consideration, and then macronutrients as your secondary consideration. And then we just take foods that we like, that we prefer, and we ensure that we reach our macronutrient targets. So your protein, your carbs, and your fats. So typically as a bodybuilder, I would say you need to have chicken, steak, eggs or egg whites, protein powder, and maybe some tuna for your protein sources. And for carbs, you need to have sweet potato, brown rice, oats, some fruit, and that's about it really for carbs, as well as fiber as well, so broccoli and fruits like vegetables as well, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, things like that. And then for your fats, you want to have almonds and macadamia nut oil and avocado and things of that nature, natural peanut butter. And that's pretty typical. That's a typical bodybuilding approach, right? And smart bodybuilders take those foods and they fit them into their macros, which will then reach their macronutrient targets and will then, by default, reach the calorie goal that they're aiming for. Or they might decide on the calorie goal and then their protein target and then factor in carbs and fats to suit the calorie goal and their protein goal. And that's how they do it, and that's how they design meal plans that are effective. So what we do with flexible dieting is we don't limit ourselves to those foods. We think about foods that we actually enjoy beyond that, and we have no limitations in that regard. So if you decide that you'd rather have white rice, sure, no problem. If you prefer to have low-fat ice cream, sure, no problem. If you prefer to have, you want to make your own desserts of some kind, or you want to go out and have a restaurant meal and track the calories that are on that meal and the protein, carbs, and fats, no problem. If you want to, meal prep and just have a wide variety of foods, constantly changing your food sources all the time, not a problem at all. All we care about is tracking the calorie type, intake or content, the protein, carbs, and fats, and ensuring that they always line up. And that is essentially flexible dieting in terms of variety with foods. Now, flexible dieting goes a little bit further because we do also consider the claim that you have to eat every 3 hours. So the claim that you have to eat every 3 hours was actually debunked quite a long time ago. And it's kind of funny because the people who would typically say, hey, you need to eat every 3 hours, they've tried things like intermittent fasting, which became quite popular, where people don't eat for 24 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours and still got great results because all they cared about was their calorie intake and their macros. So the every 3 hour thing, it was debunked quite a while ago, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of clear right now that everybody knows you don't have to eat every 3 hours. Your metabolism is going to be shifting, moving target all the time. So you might burn more energy today and burn less tomorrow. You can't really dictate what your maintenance calorie intake is, and things like that. You can't really speed up your metabolism by eating every 3 hours or eating 6 meals per day. What matters most is the total net amount of total calories per day and the total protein, carbs, and fats. So the great thing about flexible dieting is you can eat whenever you want to eat, with one regard. Every time you eat, you want to make sure that you have a protein meal or a protein content or protein source with every meal. So protein is quite important to be spread out through your day for various reasons. And you want to have your protein spread out at least 3 times per day. So morning, lunchtime, dinner. You can spread it out every 4 to 5 hours if you like to, or whatever you prefer. But every time you have a meal, it would be wise to have a protein source with that. Moving forwards, Um, Everything else is disregarded. But, and it's a big but, if you feel that you look better and you feel better because you eat every 3 hours and you're never bloated and you're never starving, go ahead and do it. No one's telling you that you can't do that. What we're trying to explain to you is that it's not necessary and it's not going to adjust whether you whether you lose body fat, whether you lose the same amount of body fat tomorrow, whether you had 6 meals or 3 meals or 4 meals or whatever. But there's definitely going to be a slight difference in visual, like how you look visually. If you eat all your calories in 3 meals, you could look a bit more bloated compared to 4 meals or 5 meals. So if you're someone who cares about how you look on a daily basis, you like to micromanage things and you've got the time and you want to put effort in, sure, you can, spread your meals out and prep your meals and time them and things like that. But at the end of the day, don't let that control your lifestyle, and don't let meal prep and things like that dictate, what your schedule looks like throughout the day. Because eating is just something that we do on a daily basis to live, survive, and thrive, not so much to look the very best we can every time we take our shirt off. But irrespective of that, understand that your total calorie intake matters most, your macros matter second, and meal timing is mostly irrelevant, but you do want to spread your protein out at least 3 servings per day if you're looking to build muscle. So that's pretty much it for flexible dieting. That's the basics of flexible dieting. Another question I get, my camera's about to go flat, but I'm gonna be real quick right now. Another question I get is about meal timing around training. So basically, where the literature is at the moment, the scientific literature in regards to nutritional science, you want to have a protein containing meal within 2 hours before you train and within 2 hours after you train. There is no apparent or no anabolic window that you need to be concerned about within 30 minutes or an hour or anything like that. If you have a meal pre-workout, that meal is still digesting while you're training, so post-workout isn't so important to have a protein shake or anything like that. If you wake up and you train on an empty stomach, which is not a problem at all, if you prefer to do that, you definitely can. But if you do decide to do that, then your post-workout meal becomes a bit more important because you've got nothing in your body. And I would advise that if you were to wake up and train in the morning, just try to have a protein shake before you train, because before training and after training, having a protein source is ideal when it comes to building muscle. And I'm pretty sure all of us can have a protein shake before we train. But anyways, that's pretty much it. And if you have any questions, you can email me at denver@denverstain.com if necessary. But that's basically it when it comes to flexible dieting. Of course, this video is actually made for my online coaching group, but I've just finished it off because I might send it to other people as well. So if you're in the online coaching group, be sure to just ask questions in the group and I'll help you there. Thanks, guys.